All right, by popular demand, really. I got a few emails and messages. But so I'm going to tell you literally just a couple of little African stories. One quite short one from my dad's book, and another one of my own, also to do with Nigeria and my dad. So, as a quick intro, okay, first the book is called Life and Death in Africa by Giuseppe Filotto, who's got the same name as I do. I just realized, the third Giuseppe Filotto, because my great-grandfather from my father's side was Giuseppe, then my dad, and then me. So I'm the third, version 3.0, best one yet. So, I'm going to read you a little short story, which is very typical of what happens in Africa very often, especially back in the 70s in Nigeria. But it's just a typical African story, and the next one is a little bit more typical dad story. Yeah. So, just as an intro, so in the villages in Nigeria, like hippos used to kill people and destroy crops and so on. And they were really quite dangerous animals. I don't know if you're aware, but the most dangerous animal in Africa is hippos, as far as large game goes. Snakes also kill people quite a lot, but hippos are generally the most vicious of the animals. The so-called dangerous charge from the elephant and the buffaloes, which my dad has been subjected to as well, are not as dangerous as hippos. Hippos kill the most people, and especially back then, villages didn't have guns and so on. My dad had managed to purchase a 375, which I think I read on the last piece maybe. But he had a 375 War, which was the biggest rifle he could get, and he was often called out to villages by, because he had a workforce of several hundred people, and they would talk, and they knew he was this crazy white man with a gun who would like shoot anything and go hunting anywhere and wasn't scared of anything. So he would often take weekends to go and shoot hippos, or long weekends or whatever. And at one point, him and my mom, I think, were away for like a week, and they left my brother and I with a maid, essentially, a lady they hired to look after us. And I was like 4, my brother was about either 2 or 3, so we were quite small. But I've always had a very excellent memory. My very first memory is from when I was 2 years old, shooting a handgun that my dad put in my hands, 38 Special. So, my memory's always been really pretty good. Anyway, so that's just the background. So he'd gone out to various places to shoot hippos and so on, and some of those stories are awesome. So this one is certainly not the funniest or the most incredible of stories. It's just a little one because it's short, and it's only a page and a half. So I'll read you that, and then I'll tell you something else about my dad. So, we were not always successful in our animal control, and I can't say today that I am sorry, since I turned out to be more pro-animals than pro-people. However, then, 35 years ago, I could not see in the future, and the hungry people asking for help were my first concern. The unsuccessful expeditions were much more than the successful ones. They were, most of the time, uneventful, but I recall a particular one that was peculiar. We were told of a lonely hippo that lived in a big pool in a swampy area, that was, again, making it difficult for the local fishermen to harvest fish in the same pool. The area was not accessible by car or by boat, so we had to drive to a village where the railway was passing, take the train, and get off at a very small village in the swampy area where a fisherman would then lead us to the pool. We had to kill the hippo and get back in time to catch the train, otherwise we would have to spend a week there, since the train passed only once a week. We reached the village, and one of the fishermen led us to the pool about an hour in walking distance. We spent the whole day looking for the hippo in the pool. The fisherman told us there was no day they would not see the hippo if they attempted fishing in that pool. That day, we never saw it. I thought he had moved to a better location, as all we got were some leeches. One was a very persistent in sucking blood from Daniela's leg, that's my mom, and still today she has a scar on that spot. We were on a small canoe, which we found on the shore of the pool, The fisherman was pushing the canoe along the reeds surrounding the small lake, and even prodding the bottom of the reeds with the long canoe pole to see if he could get the hippo to show itself. Now, I can't begin to tell you how idiotic this is. This is like on par with another little story, which I have time, I'll tell you. And my dad became aware of this, eventually. A very dangerous exercise. For that reason, I soon told Daniela to get off the canoe and stand on the shore. But she could not see the action from dry land, so she went into the water, just to knee depth, and from there supervised the dangerous and stupid hunting practice. As she was standing still in muddy water, the leeches got more onto her than me, since I was only briefly in the pool while pushing the canoe. We were unsuccessful, even though we tried till sundown. We rushed back to the village since it was late and arrived just in time to see the train ready to leave. We tried to get on, but the conductor told us nobody was allowed on that particular train. We explained our situation and offered to pay whatever was necessary. Now, in Nigeria, generally, you could pay your way pretty much out of anything. The conductor said it was not a matter of money. It was the law. I could not understand which law. I could only see that the train was full of soldiers, no civilians. Then the conductor told us to wait, and he went to call the actual driver, a nice old man who told us to walk to the front of the train and got us up into the locomotive area, a very restricted space, and told us to sit on the big wooden box just behind him. With much relief, the train left with us on board. The old man already knew our reason for being in that area and told us he was breaking the law by helping us, and that when we reached our destination, we should quietly jump off and never tell anyone we were on that particular train. I told him we would comply with his instructions and keep our mouths shut. He was pleased and explained to us that the train was carrying only soldiers, and most importantly, the soldiers' wages in cash, a lot of cash, and for that reason, nobody else could get on the train. Top security, a very serious amount of cash, and a train full of soldiers to escort it. My curiosity got the best of me, and I asked where on the train the cash was kept. Not that I wanted to rob the train, I wanted to know if they considered having it in a cage in the middle of the train the best place, or whether it was in a strong box among the armed officers. The old man turned around and told us, "You're sitting on it." I was speechless until we arrived at our destination. I offered him and the conductor some money for the trouble and risk they took in helping us, but they adamantly refused. Now keep in mind, this is Africa in the 70s. Nobody's got money there. They're all starving. They've all got family and friends that are, need food. Nigeria was pure Africa back then. They both adamantly refused, telling me to forget it. You help the village people and we help you. And in any case, you were never on this train. My silence on the train after the news that I was actually sitting on the cash was due to the fact that I started thinking, what if the officer in charge, or any officer for that matter, came into the driving section and found a strange white man sitting on the cash box with a rifle in his lap? Would he shoot me on the spot, or would he think he was hallucinating? I kept looking at the small door behind me, waiting for somebody to come in and get the shocking surprise of his life. Fortunately for all of us, we did the whole trip without visitors. So that was it. Now, here's another little story I can tell you. So, because my dad used to be, pretty crazy about going hunting and stuff, and I would say, in Italian we've got a word which you can't really translate in English. It's incosciente, which it means unconscious, if you translate it literally. But it doesn't mean unconscious as in knocked out, half asleep, or, passed out. It means unconscious as in you're not thinking with your conscience, as in your conscience is absent from your thought process. And that's, you would, I suppose in English you would say naive, or kind of innocent, but in a kind of stupid way. Because just imagine, you're in your mid-20s, you're about 26, 27, your wife's about 23, 24, and you've got two little kids, 4 and 2, or 4 and 3, something like that. In a country where, I'm going to have to tell you another little story, just to give you context. I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but... So in Nigeria, we lived on this compound where it was just our house and the house of the guy that my dad worked for, and a couple of shacks of the Fulani, the like warrior guys that like basically protected the sites. That was their only job, to be security guards, because they were reliable. And they used to have security guards on each of the sites. And my dad was building these huge army barracks. So, but you know, the site was pretty far from our house. Anyway, what used to happen occasionally was that rabies was a thing there, and occasionally a wild rabid dog would come out of the bush and just charge the house. The one that stuck into my head the most, and it was a Sunday. I know it was a Sunday because my dad was home. You know, my brother and I used to play around that house the whole day, basically. We didn't have school. We were little kids just screwing around, catching frogs, going in the bush with the scorpion snakes. You know, how we survived, it's sort of... Anyway, one day it was a husky. It was like a white, pure driven snow white husky came running out of the bush straight at my brother and I. And it was fun enough. The compound was sort of these two houses with a clearing, and there was the house of some English people like that worked for another company about a few hundred meters from us. So, but that whole area was cleared of vegetation, and then basically all around us was bush. And this dog just came running straight out of the bush at us, and my dad was home, luckily. And we weren't out playing in the yard, not even the yard, in the dirt, you know. And he had this double-barreled shotgun, which, you know, he took, and he waited until the dog was about 3-4 meters away, and he just blasted it with both barrels, and he opened the dog up. You know, I just remembered like this beautiful white dog coming at us, lathering, you know, from the mouth, and then he just got burst open. It was kind of like a little horror show, but you know. That's Africa. But now, that was on a Sunday. What if that happened on a Tuesday when he was at work? You know, just weird. I wouldn't think about that. And then, anyway, him and my mom went away hunting for like a week. And we were with this woman that they left us with, which they didn't even really know that well, because they basically just hired her to look after us while they were away, feed us and, you know, whatever. Now, I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't anything tragic. It was like, you know, my brother was doing something, but he was small, you know, like 2-3 years old. Didn't even talk that much. He was probably about 3, because he could walk. And my brother sort of limped along and dragged his leg until he was about 2.5, 3 years old. So he was at least 3, and I was probably 4.5. I don't think I was 5, but it might have been 5. Anyway, he did something like little kids will do, something annoying, or she told him not to do something and he did it again or whatever. And this woman went out to a tree, took a switch, and just had a go at both him and me. And I was fucking furious, because when she hit him, I got in the way. I was like, hey, stop hitting my brother. And then she whacked me as well. And I was fucking livid. I was 4 years old, but, you know, still got that kind of Giuseppe brain that I've got. And I thought, fuck this bitch. I'm going to start tracking my dad down. Now, I was 4 years old, so, you know, I start trying to follow the tracks of the car, because there's this red dirt in Nigeria that keeps your tracks pretty well. But now, keep in mind, they've been gone a week, right? So as a little 4-year-old, I'm thinking, I'm going to track this fucking car down until I get to where Dad is, and then I'm going to tell him, Dad, this is what this bitch did, you know? I was like... And as I'm starting to track, and then, like, tracks sort of disappear, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get her? And I see the car. My dad and my mom in the Land Rover coming back. And I'm like, I ran to the car, like, Dad, she hit us, she hit Aldo, and she hit me. And my dad's like, okay, gets out of the car, brings me and my brother to the house, calls the woman in, and he talks to me in Italian, goes, well, what happened? He was like, Aldo was doing, throwing dirt or whatever he did. Nothing. It was nothing. It was, and she hit him on the back. And then I tried to stop her, Dad, but I couldn't because I'm too small. And then she hit me as well because I was trying to stop her from hitting him. So he called her over and he goes, why did you hit my kids? And she goes, no, I never did. I lost it. I was like, Aldo, come here. And I grabbed him and I pulled up his shirt. And I said, look at that. And on his back, he still had the little indent of the switch. It's like 2 or 3 lines where the switch had like bitten into his skin, sort of thing. My dad just looked at that, and it was like there was no space in time between him looking at that and the next movement, which was a full-handed open slap to the woman that like knocked her against the door. He just like, get out, don't ever show your face here again. And it's just, that was it. And I was like, that feeling of justice. So yeah, that's my dad. You know, he was kind of crazy, but he definitely loved us, still does. You know, that man is probably chop somebody up half for fun and half because, you know, he loves his kids, for any one of us. But yeah, so that was that. So there you go. Now, I know some of you have asked me, oh, you should do the audio of the book. But first of all, I would have no clue of how to even begin doing that. And second, you know, I would probably laugh halfway through because some of these stories are just hilarious. So if you're interested, I'm sorry, you know, millennials. I know that you guys strain your finger and mouthing the words as you're trying to follow. But really, the book is the best option. And look, trust me, it's a good read. It's about 400 pages, so it's a decent-sized book. But I read it in like 2 days. And I know all the stories in here. I was there for most of them. But it was just the way it's written. It's funny. It's easy. It's an easy read. You know, it's not complex at all. My dad's got actually a writing style which I quite envy. You know, apart from his phonetic spelling in English. But once somebody corrects that, that's a very good read. So I suggest you just go and look for it on Amazon. I'll put the link below. But yeah, that's it. Couple of African stories. I mean, I could go on for days about Africa, but yeah. I think some of those must be posthumous stories, really. Yeah, we don't want anybody to go to jail. All right, that's it for now.